What it do, KTTeeV? This is KT, and I'm coming at you live with another episode of the Daily K Podcast. And on today's episode, we have State Board of Education District 6 candidate, Dr. Kimberly McLeod. How you doing today, Dr. McLeod?
All is well. Doing well. Thank you for asking.
I wanted to say thank you for taking a few minutes out of the busy schedule to talk to the audience about just you and the campaign and all the good things you're doing for education.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It's my pleasure, my honor.
Well, I tried to do a wellness check before we get started. So how have you been during the pandemic and staying safe?
Thank you. I've worked hard on trying to stay safe, mask up, glove up, have sanitizer in the car and at the house, everywhere I go. But even with all of that, I just talked to a friend of mine, another district official. She said she did the same thing and still contracted COVID and spent time in the hospital. So, for anyone out there listening, you can take safety precautions, but the best safety precaution is just to stay home.
Stay at home because it takes that one time.
It takes just one time.
Yes. I had a friend of mine who, kind of the same thing, safe, and then decided to go out and went to get something to eat, I think. And then it happened like that one time.
That one time.
Man, as we look into the interview or move into the interview, I guess, can you give us a little bit about your background in education and your current role?
So I am a career educator. I started my career as a pre-K teaching assistant at a daycare center for 3-year-olds. Then became a school teacher, a school counselor, a school administrator, a university professor. Went into university administration, served as a dean, served as an assistant superintendent, and I'm currently the dean for the College of Education at Texas A&M University Commerce.
Wow, what an awesome story. Just in going through those steps, I started especially as a para myself, and so you just hungry and you just keep working, and so now like I say, administrator for elementary, and so just still putting in that work, still learning.
Yeah.
So the question is, why is now the time? Because you've been in this a while.
Yeah.
And so then why now the time to run for the State Board of Education?
That's a really good question. I think we are the generation we've been waiting for. Shame on me if I don't use my network and my influence and my background and experience and do something positive for the community. Why now? I was formerly the president of the Texas Alliance of Black School Educators. I'm the immediate past president. And one of the things that frustrated me in just being an educator was we were so busy implementing policies that were handed down to us. And I'm like, well, who's writing these policies? Because some of these don't work. They're not working for us. And so when I became president, I put together what's known as the Texas Education Policy Institute. And I created a partnership with TEA and SBOE. And I wanted to be able to teach educators about policy and governance. And one of the things that I always say to our group is, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And our community has been on the menu for far too long. And we needed to not only carve a seat at the table, we had to build the table. And so with that, I've been training now. We're on year 3, training people in policy and governance. But the first cohort of people I trained, I call them fellows. The first group of fellows, one of them ran for State Board of Education, was elected. One of them I'm very proud of, Darlene, ran for A-Leaf, was elected. We had another that worked with the city of Houston on education initiatives. That first cohort, Dr. Brown, Kelly Brown, did so well. The second year, we had another cohort, 3 more running for public office to have a seat at the table and write policy for our community that works for the community. And when I say our community, that's anybody in public education that is not graduating with the skill set that they need for college, career, or military readiness. Second year, we approached the legislature and we asked for $1.5 million for funding for urban and rural schools. It passed the House, did not pass the Senate, um, but we got that far in only 2 years. Now in year three, we're getting ready to build our next cohort. And I'm saying all of that to say I did that without running for a position. I did that for advocacy. I did that because our community needed that. Our community needed that voice. When this position became available, two members from the State Board of Education asked me to run, and I had to give it a lot of thought. Since then, now I have four that have come and stood in support, along with a lot of people, superintendents and principals and people that I've worked for in advocacy work for years, see the value of having experience, commitment, and passion to create avenues for our students to be successful.
And so that goes to the next question of so I know advocacy is one of them, but what are some of the main things that you're looking to get accomplished as soon as you are elected?
Building relationships with other board members, because I'm only one vote. So if I want to push something,
Yes.
I need to build the partnerships and the relationships, and so the value of why what I want to bring forward is benefits the state of Texas. But one of the things I want to work on is how do we create cultures that benefit the most marginalized and disenfranchised learners, whether they be special education, gifted and talented, whether they be low SES, whether they be Black, Brown, Hispanic, multilingual, monolingual, those students who need a voice, we need to put policy in place. I believe we should have a very active role in creating culturally responsive environments. It's not only race. Sometimes it's income. Sometimes it's learning difference. But we want to make sure that every child has the best opportunity at creating the life potential that they so desire. Um, I also believe that we should look at different types of graduation plans. You spend 12 years in public education, you ought to be able to walk away with something in your hand that can help create the life sustainability you need as for you or for a family. We ought to be able to help them break generations of poverty. We ought to be able to help them learn, and we have the capacity to do that at the board level, how to invest in the stock market, what that means, how we can train, how we can create a bridge to higher education. And because I've been in both sides and understand both cultures, that's two of the things I'd like to do. And with that cultural piece, I want to address the overrepresentation of some demographic subsets and in school and out of school suspension, as well as over identification in special education. We need to make sure education for all really means education for all.
I was on a panel last Monday night of about 9 to 10 educators. And I mean, it was just, we was talking about some of the same things though, the overrepresentation, and just being represented in the right way. And so everything you're doing, it seems like that's really the place where the work can start, in that seat that you're getting. So congratulations on your win. All right. So,
you know, when you're losing, you're winning. So regardless of how this election turns out, I am going to be an advocate for our community. I can't not do that. I can't not take what is given to me and keep that to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so we will create a win. And if, my goal is to sit in that seat.
Yeah.
But if I don't, I'm going to put pressure on whoever does.
Hey, that's it. Please, a lot of pressure.
To make the decisions we need for our community.
And so now, once you do cross that threshold,
yes, sir.
Forced with it, because it's right here in our face, is the COVID situation. As we look to start face to face, and we have all the guidelines, protocols, at the end of the day, we know it's all about safety.
Mhm.
So what role does the State Board of Education play in keeping teachers and students safe as we look to return?
Yeah, so, a lot of that is going to be set forth by the governor, by the commissioner of education, by local authorities, by school boards that are voting and determining what they want to happen in their schools, how they will open. Um, Sometimes being elected to a seat is not only about what you can vote on, but what you can influence. And so part of that is being able to have the influence and the network to be able to reach out to this person, that person, give resources, information, make connections, reach out to community and parents. And so I can't tell you how the State Board of Education will vote as it relates to COVID. When a lot of that is curricular issues, but I can tell you that from a seat of influence, you and we have. I learned that through the Texas Education Policy Institute. We've talked with the chair of the Senate, uh, the chair of the Education Committee on the Senate side. We work with members on the House. And so having that network to say, hey, what's happening? How can I give input? I'm currently working with the city of Houston now on a couple of initiatives with Juliet Stepetch and her team. Um, but all that to say, it's not just position, it's influence and impact. And that's where I see my voice most useful.
I like when you said curricular issues because that is going to be something that's very serious. And so even as far as testing, like we were able to waive the star this year. But then you think about the students who would have just made the cut to approaches, and so now those gaps are getting very, very wide. And
Right.
so, how will you address the state testing situation for the upcoming year? How would you address that?
So my personal opinion is I think we're not ready. Um, I think we need a little catch up time. Um, However, I'm not a fan of a lot of testing as I am, and do you have the knowledge and the skill set, and that can be measured in a lot of different ways. But what I will say is this: the one positive to me light at the end of the tunnel that testing does deliver is it allows us to see those populations we are not reaching. And we can't pretend that they did not get a fair shake. And we are held accountable to make sure that those populations that aren't performing, we do something different with them to make sure they perform. Without testing, we just assuming everybody, we can hide that under those numbers. And um, if all of our students aren't learning equitably, we need to do something about it. We got to do something different. I would say that's the only silver lining. I think there's more than one way that we can assess students' potential and capacity to be productive citizens.
Yes, I agree. Well, just thinking of the testing, we did a lot more last year on my campus with the uncommon schools and the Get Better Faster. And so we were able to kind of monitor with the aggressive monitoring. We were able to monitor faster, and so now all our eggs weren't put into the last test that make or breaks the whole situation.
Right.
And so just being proactive on things like that. Just speaking of that, by the time we get the star, I've been monitoring all year. I know, So
Exactly.
all right. So now Texas ranks 15th in the quality of education, but 43rd in education attainment. So why do you think that's so? And as a member of the State Board of Education, how would you address it?
So that's a real good question. And I'll say this. One, again, this is my opinion, and I'm sure that a lot of other people feel this way as well. from the State Board of Education, I can't fix that, but influence and impact can address it. I think we're underfunded. I don't think that the Texas legislature has put in. It's not just it's the school funding formula. Everybody knows it's broken, and that needs to be corrected and fixed. And I know there's a task committee working on that. Um, but we need to fund our schools better. Um, it's not equal. You can be in that one district. There's one district I worked in. One side of the tracks, the kids had everything. The other side, they had nothing. Um, Another district I worked in, everybody had everything they needed. But how we deliver that in the classroom, there was different. There was equity gaps there. So one of the ways I think we need to fix that is finding a better school finance system, and that falls in line with the House. Um, I also believe how, and some superintendents have been pretty skillful on ensuring that the most difficult populations don't have a first year teacher, but making sure the best teachers are worth the students who could benefit from that the most. I think that would be a start to helping Texas move up in the ranks. And then, I mean, we need to look at what other states are doing, other countries are doing. They have competency-based instruction. We're doing that in higher ed. It hasn't reached down to K-12 yet. We need to talk about student engagement. Some students weren't engaged when we had traditional school. Now that we're online, there's no way they're going to want to connect. They didn't want to connect while they were sitting in the classroom. So we've got to look at how to prepare a culture and a climate that's conducive for both the teacher and the learner.
Okay, powerful. Thank you for that answer. Oh, wow. I'm glad you're on my side. All right. You've been doing this a while. As teachers, first year teachers begin to start the year, what are some words that you could give them of wisdom, encouragement to kind of help them, get set up in something so trying?
I would say my first year teaching, um, what helped me, I graduated from a program that was very diverse. Um, and it was taught from a theoretical mindset framework from the books and theory. And growing up, my parents grew up very, 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 very poor in in a segregated South. In El Dorado, Arkansas, and Monroe, Louisiana, they were very poor. But somehow, through God's grace, my grandmother, on a domestic housekeeper salary with a third grade education, put 6 kids through college. And so my parents have a college degree. My father was a high ranking officer in the military. So I grew up with a different perspective in very integrated schools where I was probably the only minority. My high school was like that. My college experience was like that. My first year teaching was not. I chose to work in a district on a campus where the entire campus was low SES, predominantly minority. And what I learned at the university did not work in the classroom. All that theory, all that science, I wasn't getting the outcomes. And my girlfriend who graduated from Grambling was experiencing great success. And she's like, Kim, just bring your whole class. Let me teach both of them at the same time. So what I learned from her, she treated the students as if they were her own children. I treated them as if they were my students. She treated the parents as if they were her neighbors. I treated them as if they were the parents of my students. And I'm saying that to say, first year teachers, when you see your children, they want to know who you are. They learn through relationships, not in spite of them. And you've got to build that connection with them in order to reach them. And if you do that, You don't have to teach a day in your life. They'll want to learn and suck that from you. And if they can't get it from you, they will get it on their own and prove to you, look what I know. Look what I can do. Um, and my advice would be build the relationship. If things don't go well, ask yourself, what could I do different? Don't blame the student. Don't blame the parent. Don't blame that's your group. That's your kids. You own them. And you find they say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, but you can solace oats. You find that salt, you find that motivation that you don't have to force them to drink. They want to drink from your classroom. They want to be there, and just never give up.
Yeah. So if we start online, let me see how I can slide this Rita Pearson back into the lineup to get us that put everything back, But like we say in the Leaf, meaningful relationships, meaningful work. So and I still believe that coming from a special education teacher, structure, behavior teacher. So relationships was my number one. So I just want to say thank you for taking some time out today, Dr. McLeod.
Oh, thank you for the honor and privilege. And um, the school that you told me you're leading, may they prosper. May those kids go out and rule the world.
Amen. Amen. And so, before we go, can you give everyone the contact information, the ballot, just everything?
So Kimberly McLeod, District 6, it reaches all the way from Tomball, Spring, Cy-Fair, A-Lee, HISD, Spring Branch, some parts of Katy. You all get out there and vote. It is a tight runoff. I pray that you vote for experience and you vote for passion, and you vote for somebody who will be a voice for this community. So get out there, early voting, and if you can't, you got to go on July 14th, which is the day when everybody can vote. My website is www.drkim4tx, DRKIM, the number 4tx.com. On there is my address, my phone number, my Twitter handle, everything you need to know. But Dr. Kim for Texas, I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
All right. I thank you. That will do it for us today.
All right.
All right. This is KT for KTTeeV signing out. 100.